Yeah, I've done that work since I was in grad school, and then I got a grant to do it last year, or I guess 2 years ago now in Pennsylvania, and it was a great experience. But yeah, it was cut short due to COVID, and it was
That's
really
so
sad.
sad. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
COVID
sorry.
changed the world.
You know?
I really related to your poem, Growing Up in the Shadow of 3 Mile Island.
Oh yeah,
That's my home turf.
Oh,
And
okay.
the nature museums, all of the old stuffed taxidermy and things that
thank you.
I was exposed to as a child. Oh, I related to that so well.
Thanks a lot. Yeah,
That's
I
cool.
found it peculiar growing up near Island as well, because it was like the first thing you learn about it was like the disaster, and then you're like, wait, that's
Right.
a backyard.
I remember being in first grade when that happened.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And I mean, the only reason I remember it, there was an announcement, or the teacher got a phone call, or oh, something's going on. They shut the blinds in our classroom.
Wow.
What else
What
could
school
they
is
do?
Wow.
That was our response. Oh my goodness.
Wow.
That sounds like a poem right there.
What school
Yeah.
was that?
Reamstown.
Oh wow, so that is really close. Okay.
Close.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was in Dover, Pennsylvania, so it wasn't really my backyard, but still it was a 25-minute drive,
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
I like
Crazy.
that poem, Vanessa.
I should make a
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
there's a nuclear meltdown going on, so we close the blinds.
Right. Right.
Let's just shut our eyes to it, right?
That's right.
It reminds me of something my husband said one time. He was teaching, and I think Governor Reagan, what happened? Governor Reagan was trying to stop protests in Berkeley, and so he sent planes with gas canisters, and they
Okay.
dropped the gas canisters over Berkeley. And my husband was teaching, and there was a class of students, and the students in the back, then the windows were open, and the students in the back started coughing, and he thought they were goofing around.
Mhm.
He went back and
Wow.
he stuck his head out the window, and he smelled this gas that evidently the gas canisters didn't hit their mark, and they ran closer to these schools and where people were instead of to People's Park. It was so crazy.
Oh my God.
So
Well-
how people are affected by things unexpectedly.
Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah.
Well, and stupid responses to, to crises, right? Well, let's drop gas.
Yeah.
Let's
And
shut the blinds.
That's
Yeah.
what they were saying about the Trump rally in DC when he cleared it out so he could go take his Photoshop in front of the church.
Right.
They were talking about the gas can affect people's eyes, it can affect their lungs in the
Mhm.
long term.
Right.
That's wow, crazy.
One stupid decision. Yeah.
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 I'm going to wait about 5 more minutes to see if
Okay.
Michael shows up, and then I'll go ahead and read in Tyler's bio.
Mhm.
In the meantime, I think everybody here knows that that Berks Bards is transitioning.
Right.
Okay, good.
Yeah, and I can speak to that. We're transitioning so that we have already set up January, February, March for regular first Thursday, and we're going to have an open mic rather than a feature for those 3 months.
Mhm.
But we do want to have a team of people, and Jane and Sandra and others, and Vanessa, you're in the discussion about what that looks like for 2022. Jennifer and Marilyn and I are stepping back from the leadership, but we will be around. We're not going away. And, we hope that it can transition to maybe a new plan or a new focus, but we think that the team, I think I'm not misspeaking to say that the team wants it to go on at least the first Thursday readings.
Mhm.
And what will happen between now and April, let's say, National Poetry Month,
Mhm.
we may just have an open mic and not any features. So that's up to the new team. And we welcome any suggestions from anybody who's on the call tonight. Yeah, you can, let's see, contact, you get the messages from Jennifer Hetrick, so you can contact her directly if you have any suggestions on how we might plan for the new year.
Sounds good.
Mhm.
And particularly if you want to be on the team.
Yeah, all options are open.
That's right.
Except my job.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Bernardo's in.
You're irreplaceable, Bernardo.
Oh, thank you.
Hi, Sandra.
Hi there. Good to
Welcome.
see everybody.
Hey,
Hello. I have a quick funny story to tell. When are we starting?
we're
Bernardo?
starting in 3 minutes.
Okay.
I'll be quick. I just traveled for the first time in 22 months to Boston to see my daughter and her family, my daughter and son-in-law and granddaughter. It was so amazing to be with them. And I was there from the 12th of November to yesterday.
Wow.
So I'm reporting that I lived to tell the tale that I went far away and I came back and I'm good. We were wearing double masks all the time, inside and out, because, contact. My son-in-law works for Boston University, so he was out among people. We were in the house mostly, except when we went for walks in the park. So that said, yesterday I flew from Boston to Philly and I was in a bookstore, came out of the bookstore, was on my way to my gate, and I saw this man sitting in a chair at gate 15. And he was tall. I mean, he was sitting down, but he was tall and he had gray hair and he was talking on a phone. And I said, "That's John Kerry, Senator John
Oh my
Kerry."
gosh. Wow.
So there I am, about 15 feet from him, walking in the concourse. And I stopped and I looked at him and he looked at me and he kept talking on the phone. And I waved like this and he waved back at me. And I walked on my way. So I told Bernardo earlier, it was so cool to see Senator John Kerry, and he was on his way to Washington, of course.
Right.
Wednesday morning, he was on his way to Washington.
Very cool. Neat.
Okay. Well, let's see what. Let's just wait and jump the gun. Let's get this thing started. All of you are here already, and you know where you are. But I want to say welcome to Berks Bards anyway.
Thank you.
Right? This is a virtual poetry reading series coming to you live from a virtual place near Reading, Pennsylvania. I am your host, Bernardo, and tonight we have a poet joining us who is even more virtual than myself. His name is Tyler Barton. Okay, so let's get into meeting who Tyler is. Tyler Barton. Where is that? It's not there. It's not there. God, where is Tyler Barton's stuff? Let's see. Go over here then. All right, I'll get from the screen. Tyler Barton. Tyler Barton is the author of the collection Eternal Night at the Nature Museum. I think someone made reference to that already. It's on Sarabande Books. In 2021, and a chapbook, The Quiet Part Loud, split up 2019. His work has appeared in the Kenyon Review, the Iowa Review, the Adroit Journal, and elsewhere. Find him at tsbarton.com, at Gulf Tyler, or in Saronic Lake, New York. Tyler says influenced by Lydia Davis, Mary Ruffel, thank you, because it's tight, it's so small. Oh, there, I blew it up. All right. Laura Kasike and other writers whose work often straddles a line between flash fiction, prose poetry, and lyrical essay. Much of his writing is hard to describe or categorize. His debut collection of short stories includes many one-page pieces that he personally thinks of as prose poems. All of his writing, even for 25-page short stories, he's a writer motivated first by language and the way one line feeds the next, which I can very much relate to. Very unmotivated by plot and narrative conventions. He thinks that writers are artists first, artists who use words. And like many artists, he thinks it's natural and healthy for writers to not only explore different genres, but actively try to subvert, reinvent, and push the boundaries of the current ones. This reading will consist of prose poetry, flash fiction, and lineated poems written in stanzas.
All right.
Get it?
Yay.
We got all our fine-tuned, all our housekeeping issues out of the way. You know, we know that Berks Bards is transitioning. However, Liz may have one or two things she might want to say. So I'm just going to leave it open for you, Liz. Do you have anything?
Well, I just put into the chat that you are welcome, or any friends of yours are welcome to contact me by email to
Okay.
zillabets@hotmail.com if you have any suggestions for Berks Bards 2022. Any people who would like to join the process of planning, we welcome them from near and far.
Beautiful.
We hope that Berks Bards will refresh and recover and do all the good things to go into the new year. And we're open for suggestions on that. And also, if there are people out of the area, they can certainly chip in. You don't have to live in Berks County to help to plan for Berks Bards for 2022. That's the beauty of this, that we can communicate with all the people we've met through this whole incredible 22 months or 23 months, whatever it's been. So the question, for example, are we going to continue with Zoom? Yes, I believe for January, February, March. Are we going to open up and have live meetings, live readings like we used to do before Zoom existed?
I hope so.
Maybe, maybe it'll be both. Maybe it'll be first Thursday and second Tuesday. Who knows? We're open to suggestions. We have a healthy treasury. We have funds that we got from the Berks Arts Council, which is now called Berks Arts. And so we have funds to transition. We're all unpaid contributors, unpaid volunteers, but we have money for paying poets, for for printing, for anything that the PayPal is available. You can contribute to Berks Bards, and therefore we have had a lot of support from the community in the past. So we value that and we appreciate that. If there are any questions, I can answer now, but
No, not now.
all right,
Yeah.
that's all.
Right now, we're just giving out information.
Okay.
There will be a period of time after Tyler reads that you will then be able to read your poetry in an open mic tonight. All you have to do is put your name in the chat and that you want to read some poetry. And once Tyler is finished, we'll ask him for a question and answer period, a brief question and answer period, and then we will open it up for open mic. Right now, I want to turn things over to Tyler. We read his bio. We know a little bit about the eccentric way he approaches poetry. I'm going to ask Tyler to give us about 20, 25 minutes of poetry and hold back one poem that you're going to close the night with, because you want to send us home on a powerful note.
Good.
Sounds good.
Without further ado, I'd like to present Tyler Barton.
Yay. Good.
Thank you so much, Bernardo, and everyone here for making this happen. I'm really happy to be here. So I grew up in York County in Pennsylvania, so not far from Berks, and I lived for most of my adult life in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, but just this summer I moved from Lancaster to way upstate New York in the Adirondacks, where I'm working now at the Adirondack Center for Writing. So I still feel like South Central PA is home to me. So it's nice to be with some writers who know the area that I know. I'm going to read the prose poems that are in my collection of short stories. These are one-page stories that I think I called them stories when I wrote them, but the more that I write poetry now and write things that kind of cross boundaries, I really do think of a lot of these pieces more as prose poems. And I think you might feel the same way after hearing them. So I'll read a couple of those from my book, Eternal Night at the Nature Museum. And I'm also going to throw in some other things that aren't in the book that are poems and kind of hybrid pieces. But I do want to start with just reading the title story of the book, which is called Eternal Night at the Nature Museum, a half hour downriver from 3 Mile Island. So the book gets its name from this piece of prose poetry. It's called, again, Eternal Night at the Nature Museum, a half-hour downriver from 3 Mile Island. On the roof grows a tree facilities kills every summer. Killed, rather, as the men from facilities are gone. As everyone, staff, faculty, public, is gone. Gone for what Harrisburg still calls temporary. The museum belongs to no one now, or rather belongs to that tree, or to the animals in their chewed through glass, or to the time we lost a snake. Every time we lost a snake we couldn't find for days and stayed open for visitors anyway. What I mean is the museum belongs to, I don't know, some kid, the one I sensed hiding in every building I ever closed down for the night, the same kid I imagined stowing away inside the tree trunk or the shark's mouth or the trash tote in the mop closet, this milk-mouthed kid with nothing to lose, too spooked to say uncle after having chosen hiding, now living out what was never a Disneyland fantasy, but rather the lesser of two letdowns. Life, alone in a building full of owl eggs, appeal letters, revisionist archaeology, and Arctic wolves who leap like puppies, glass eyes gleaming through their taxidermy. The building belongs to, yeah, this starved sapling of a person. And the minute this kid finishes the fish food, cracks 2 teeth on the hematite, retches up the crickets, licks all the pollen from the dead bee's legs, the climbing begins. Upstairs, up stories. Learning from the lizards who clawed away their cages, this kid will bore with whittled obsidian and patience a hole through the 3rd floor utility door, behind which lies the ladder, and so the roof, and so the tree, and so the fruit. Thank you. So that is where the book gets its title from. And this is a book of short fiction and these shorter pieces that kind of punctuate the longer stories that are about a page long. Usually they're like one paragraph or one chunk of text, the way a prose poem often looks on a page. Very influenced by Mary Ruefle's book of prose poems, My Private Property. And she writes prose poems at other times too, but that whole book is kind of like prose poems and lyric essays. And I read that while I was in grad school, trying to learn to write fiction. And I think encountering Mary Ruefle's work really pushed me in this other direction to always look for ways where fiction, nonfiction, and poetry overlap. So I want to share a new piece that really exemplifies that kind of space in writing where a genre kind of is malleable. And I want to read this piece because there are like 4 different versions of this on my computer, and each one is really a different genre. I have this piece which is called Facts About My Gifts. And I have a version that's like a little short story. I have a version that's a lineated poem, and I have a version that's more of an essay. And then this is kind of the one I've settled on, which I think is more of a prose poem. So it's kind of like one chunk of text. And it is true. Normally I make things up, but this is kind of a real kind of memory from my childhood. So it's called Facts About My Gifts. To see if I was gifted, I was given a test. The test that would teach me that true tests are the ones in which you don't know whether you're nailing it or failing. This test had nothing to grade, nothing to score. What do you see here? Arrange these. Arrange them more. You have 10 seconds. I test okay, but I sweat. Next question. There were no windows, no soda. Read this aloud. Read this to yourself. Read that backwards. Then came the only question that I know for sure I failed. What is glass made from? How was I to know the answer? How does the presence or absence of any single fact signal gifts? I'd grow to learn that facts were presents like lottery tickets that no one needed. You are to smile anyhow, be appreciative. You are to scratch. There I sat before a man in a blue suit in a room behind the principal's office. I was 9. In any building in America, I wandered into truth. Is there a room behind that building's most terrifying room? I smiled, knowing nothing except never to leave a man waiting for an answer. What I said, of course, was water. Thank you. So I was not chosen as a gifted child. I didn't pass the gifted test. And I always like to joke that it's because I didn't know what glass was made of. I mean, that's a real question I was asked, and my mind was blown when I later asked my mom and she told me sand. I was like, how is that possible? But in the test, I claimed that it was water and I failed. So I'm going to read a couple more short pieces from the collection. And this one is particularly appropriate because it's about a poetry reading, and was written, a lot of notes for this were written at a poetry reading. I used to love to go to Midtown Scholar for poetry readings and to see authors read. I think they do a great job with events there. And so Midtown Scholar means a lot to me. And so this is a story, or a poem really, that is dedicated to them. It's called Midtown. The poet mopped the floor with us. The poet opened up like a cornered sky and fell on us. The poet felled us. The lights flickered. No drinks were ordered. Nobody rose for the pisser. The poet, a warned about force, put everything internal up for sale, for free, on the front porch of their voice, and we carried all we could handle home. For days, we walked slower for how the poet made us feel about trees. We just needed to touch every trunk, rub the leaves, smell our hands, compose dark, sloppy emails about how it all felt, emails we then sent to the poet, who never responded, but did post online that they were not in a good place mentally, and then apologized for transgressions no one in the poet's life remembered. A picture of our sorry faces was taken for the paper, and the headline said, "The tops of these people's heads have been taken off by a poet." And of course we read the article, and we shared it, and we clipped it out and pinned it up at work so it could watch us wither, all the while turning over the article's pull quote. "I think a poem is a dig site. I'm talking archaeological. There's some shit down there," the poet had said. "And I just want one other thing on the record. I'm sorry I couldn't get through the book signing without crying. I don't know what's wrong with me." We promised our loved ones, though later, of course, we failed, that we would never forget how the poet had trounced us. That night of the reading, we'd eaten dinner early or out or alone as usual, just to be on time for our trouncing. After all, we had come to be trounced. We had been hurt well and good, had been dunked on. We had, by the poet, been altered. Our hands still sting from the applause. We didn't know when to clap, and then we didn't know when to stop. Thank you. So I'm gonna read one other piece that's newer. It's was published in the recent issue of Barrel House, which is a great print journal and online journal and just a good literary organization based there in Philly. And I had two poems published in Barrel House, and they are from a project that's new. It's called On Kilter. And it's all poems that are comprised of notes from meetings that I took while at work. So during like trainings, meetings, Zooms, things that were in some way like deadening to my soul, I would often, like, I think a lot of poets and writers do this, you're sitting there, look like you're taking notes during a meeting, but really you're just writing down like lines of poetry. But I was kind of like writing down things that I took from these meetings that I found to be rich in language or funny or ironic in some way. So these poems are comprised from notes from meetings like this. So I'm only going to read one of them. This is notes from a merchants meeting, November 2020. And that is kind of the epigraph of the poem, says like where it was from. So this is notes from a merchants meeting. And the title of it, which is long, is "The GPS prevented them from just parking in a garage somewhere, and the total number of impressions was heartening given the environment." So here, this is where it starts. "We're hearing something interesting from the bed and breakfast community. a real trend, what's being called a workcation. Basically, people on laptops in the brunch nooks of Amish country. A connection we have from a previous world, because when we can carvertize, where we are wrapping cars with imaging, where we're looking at our competitors, where we're looking at our competitors honestly on a regular basis, and no, not just the bordering counties, we're looking at Jamestown, we're looking at Gettysburg, at Philadelphia, your Baltimores, heat maps, even beach towns. Even though we don't have a beach, we're still looking oceanside, and we like what we're seeing. But I'll be honest with you today, we don't love what we hear. The data's tonality, hoping to capture that foot traffic, the taste of that messaging. And each of these trees, you guessed it, is getting its own digital billboard. Am I muted? Hello? Did you lose me? Thank you. So those poems are really fun. A lot of them are very much leading with humor and irony, and just trying to pick out things from meetings and trainings that I felt were worthy of odes, or ironic odes, I guess, in poems. So I'm going to read 2 more short pieces from my book, and then I'm looking forward to hearing people read in the open mic, and then I'll share one last thing before we go. This is another prose poem from the book. It's called Hiccups Forever. Hiccups Forever. An hour after it happened, I watched our house explode. Friday in History 9, Evan's phone got passed around under the tables. I was the last to watch the YouTube video. I dropped his phone, cracked the screen, then the hiccups came, and they haven't left. You can still watch the video on YouTube. It's there. Search York County home disintegrates in gas explosion. A cop car parked on our block had a dash cam going. A normal day, spring, blue sky. Mr. Sims has Groucho on a walk. On the left, a white house goes pufferfish. For a millisecond, it's still our house, just expanded, with space in between every piece. You can see sky through each tiny seam. My green room spreads out. Then confetti, black confetti, our dog dies, Groucho barks, Mr. Sims runs past the camera. Nobody knew it was my house when they handed me the phone. They don't even know my name is Kara. I watched it anyway. I've watched it a lot. The video played on Facebook all weekend. People said it was awesome, which was weird, but I shared it too. 27 likes, a personal record. LaQuinta's manager put my parents in separate rooms. The other guests couldn't sleep with all their loud ass blame. My sister Jenna told me, kiss everything normal bye, and I can't sleep with you making those noises. So I've been lying on a booth in the hotel breakfast nook every night, wondering what she means and hiccuping. Nobody's sharing the video anymore, but I still watch it. A lot, on the computer in the lobby, full screened, reversed, dragging the button left across the page, slow as possible. It's cool. Every piece has somewhere to go. Everything shrinks back together. My hiccups stop. It's weird. Played forward, the house pieces float there until they disappear. That's the future, I think, what Jenna means. When I let go of the mouse, I hiccup. 8 seconds, our house is over. Even the smoke's gone, just blue, springtime, Groucho barking, like we were never there. But watching in reverse, it's different. In reverse, I can breathe. Plus, it's prettier, like a party when everyone finally shows up before anybody starts to leave. Thank you. That's probably one of the oldest pieces in the book, Hiccups Forever, and it's a favorite of mine. It's also a piece that I wrote as a long short story, and then tried writing it in many different forms till I could get it right, and then it ended up rewriting it all in one kind of breathless paragraph, which is a great writing technique that I learned from Kathy Fish, who's a writer of flash fiction. The breathless paragraph. A lot of these pieces in my book could be described as that. They're like one long paragraph where all the language is kind of tumbling out, and I feel like the energy of the actual initial drafting of the piece, where things are just kind of coming out really quickly, I try to keep that in there. So this last piece I'll read for right now is another piece like that. It's in the book Eternal Night at the Nature Museum, and it's called County Map detail. Town's got 10 churches, no library, more cop cars than stores, 4 laundries, not counting the ones inside the Best Westerns. Yes, there's a second Best Western. Everyone has an opinion on which is better. The West Best Western is the better Best Western, goes an old incantation. Here, a hole opens up in the ground if you stumble. We have guns. We have running, but never for fun. Of course, we have running water. What do you think this is? Not America? Who told you that? But I never said it was potable. Now spit. We even have a water tower, though it was, as a prank, painted black. The monument outside the burned library shows an old man, our town's founder, holding a snake by the name of Lonely. And it too is painted that. Not a prank, if you ask the artist, which our part-time and only reporter did. And soon after the interview aired, the East Best Western's Ballroom B became home to an unruly congregation of equal parts pranksters and artists, gathered finally to draw boldly the line between them. Bedlam, shouting like quicksand, no mediators, no counselors, one therapist with a wait list. Did I mention our 13 mediums? All homes are warmed by oil stored in basement tubs, a bobber that drops to warn the owner there's nothing left to burn but rust. At 3 a.m., I've got $20 for anyone who can tell apart an artist from a hoaxer as they stagger along Locust Ave. Dry Ireland's what gallops down Main Street like tumbleweed. Excuse my failure to fill in the gaps. 23, no 24 lots gone to seed. Are you sold yet? We've got no gold. We've got a cash for gold. Had 2, in fact, until the second was reborn as a credit union. Verizon store, that morphed back into a Quick Trip. What else, what else, what else, what else? My brain's turning both of its pockets out. I'm on empty. Don't laugh. The town's got, had, our addresses, yes, they all end in halves. You hope it's plenty. Thank you.
Feel free to unmute to applaud, Tyler.
Yay! Woo!
Yay!
Very nice.
Thanks so much.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
I
You
appreciate
have a
it.
very interesting style, my friend.
Yes,
Thanks.
you do.
I don't know if your bio could do you justice in saying that you do, you know. What inspired you to write that Hiccup Forever piece?
Yeah, that's a great question. Honestly, that was seeing a video for myself. I think it was I think the YouTube video that I saw, it was probably being shared on Facebook probably 5 or 6 years ago, was New Jersey house explodes in gas explode or whatever in gas explosion. So really did kind of do ekphrasis in that way of like looking at a piece that, although I guess you can't call a video shot on someone's phone art. I don't know. Anyway, I watched the video and then just imagined like what would happen if you saw this video. The way that you learned that your house had exploded was by watching this video, like how destabilizing that would be. So yeah, I had lots more scenes of like this family kind of living with the shock of this, and they're stuck in this hotel and driving each other crazy and stuff. But I really just came back to the core of the story was this young girl watching the video on YouTube, and not just the first time seeing it, but then returning to it and kind of reversing the video, the way you can kind of pull the cursor back to make it go backwards. And that image was like, was the most powerful thing in the piece. And then I thought, since the story wasn't working as a longer piece, I was like, I'll just focus in on that act of watching the video. So
That's great.
That's almost like a persona poem, though. Tyler. You're writing in the voice of her.
yeah.
And I love that line about the party coming back together like a party, like everybody comes together. There's some great stuff in there, man.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I hate
Really
that when you're
nice.
at a party and everyone finally gets there, and then like you want like people show up late and but people are already leaving by the time that people get there. You want everyone there anyway.
Right.
Nice.
So what else inspires you to write? Is anything, does like anything you see, or do you wake up in the morning and thoughts just come to you? What happens?
I'm just really always taking notes. I tried to keep myself entertained through somewhat of the the dailiness of life, or I don't really, the doldrums is the word that came to mind, of like kind of your day in, day out, though I really try to stay open to noticing details every day and writing them down as an act of like being in the moment. So I just have so many notes on my phone, where I kind of, my phone is a little bit of my journal, because I have an app on there, you know, it's an iPhone, so it has a notes app. And I just have like a note called Lines for Poems. I have a note called Jokes, and I have a note called Ideas for Stories. And I just add little pieces in there. And if I sit down to write and I need inspiration, I'll just kind of open that up and pull something out. So
That's a
lots of
good
stories in
idea.
the book. The first sentence of them will be just like a little note I took while riding in the car or while walking to work or something. So yeah, I just try to
Good
take
idea.
notes and then use them. So
Sounds like you could teach a workshop, man. And, you know, going back to what you were saying in the other one, you said something about the gifts.
yeah,
You know, Vanessa, so that's not just those notes. Like so Vanessa said in the chat, she enjoyed your wordplay. I did as well.
thank
It's
you.
very clever, man.
Yeah.
It was.
Got some stuff going on there, my friend.
Yeah. Well, I really look up to as much as I look up to poets, I also really look up to comedians and comedy writers. So I do try to make I mean, actually, yeah, I do try to make things funny, but I think it's just my natural way of like what I find interesting is usually things that are quirky or ironic. So I tend to go in that direction a lot. I think there's a lot of humor in my book of short stories. So yeah,
Okay.
Oh,
thank you.
nice.
Now, speaking of quirky, there's a lot of quirkiness going on in America, my friend. But do you ever find yourself writing about
Putting it
those kind of
lightly.
things in your notes? Or you just bypass it to go to the humor, to get away from the
Yeah.
quirkiness of reality?
That's a good question. Well, it may be a weakness as a writer, but it's kind of the way that I found that it works for me, is that if I sit down to try to write about something that is like, if I sit down to try to write a story that is about like a big heavy theme, I'll write a story and then discover through writing it what the themes are. And that's how I prefer to write. But if I was like, you know what, I really want to write a story about something that's going on right now, like something topical in the news, or like something, a theme that I think will be relevant to a lot of people because I want to reach a lot of people. Like if I start from that place, I am already kind of dead in the water. Like I just can't get things moving if I'm like trying. If it's more like if I have a point I'm trying to make, as soon as I start writing it, I don't have a lot of energy. I don't know what it is. I feel like other writers are motivated totally differently. They want to make a point and they're going to like craft a story in order to make this point. But I often am like kind of just reaching for detail after detail and moment after moment until the themes kind of come out. And it's a lot of my writing is focuses on more personal things. I'm very interested in the idea of home and how people find home, how they lose home. And that's kind of what my book is about. But yeah, there's no shortage of things happening to inspire one to write, but I find it doesn't work for me to start there. Yeah.
You're right. I think a lot of poets have different ways they come into writing.
Yeah.
And I think that's one thing I might miss about the new structure of Berks Bards, is to not be able to have that one person I can talk to and kind of dig into what makes you tick. How do you do this? And you definitely have some very interesting observations. As a matter of fact, I like that thing about finding home and losing home. It sounds to me almost like a book.
Yeah.
With finding home, and the last poem is called Losing Home. So and then in between you got all that stuff, because like you said, it's about coming into the world and growing up as a kid and seeing life, and then as you get older, things start to expand, and it's like the world is bigger than you ever thought it was. It's bigger than the tree sitting on top of the rooftop.
Right.
Now the whole world out here with stuff, man. And we just kind of wander into it and extract from it, and you definitely have your own style and sitting down and taking notes, and then crafting your notes to craft observation. and then you throw in the wordplay and it becomes a work of art. So I applaud you, my friend. Applaud you.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Mhm.
And I'm looking at this chat. I glanced at it. I don't see anybody asking for open mic.
Oh, can we just raise our hands?
We can do that. We can do that. We can do that. I'm trying to see who asked first, though. Vanessa. Wait. Was that
Alright.
Vanessa? I think. Let's see. Oh, there
There we
we go.
go.
Vanessa. Vanessa was the first one.
Cool.
So, does anybody else have any questions for Tyler before I open up open mic?
Tyler, I just want to say, hey, it's Christine Lincoln. I love your
Christine.
work.
Mhm.
Miss you.
Oh, wow.
Aw.
I don't know. I didn't notice you were here before. That's so great to see you.
It's good to see you, my friend. It's good to hear your words again.
Thank
have a
you. Christine
question.
is a real inspiration for me. It's one of the first people to take my work seriously and really inspired me at a very young and important time. So, and
Wow.
I'm a huge fan of her writing. So this is great. Thank you,
Wonderful.
Christine.
May I ask a question?
Yeah.
I'm just interested in what your process was like with Saraban books.
Yeah, for sure.
That's a good press.
Yeah.
Yeah. They are a great press. They make beautiful books, and I'm very lucky to have had this experience with them. My process was every year they have, I think they have one for fiction and one for poetry. They have a yearly manuscript contest, and I sent my manuscript of short stories to them in 2019 after I had sent it to multiple agents, and I got some good responses from agents and had some good discussions with them on the phone, but they are all basically said the same thing, which was, short story collections are hard to sell. When you have a novel, we'd love to, meet again and see if we can move forward. So, and I didn't have a novel ready. I just had a book of stories, and I have loved short stories ever since I was in high school, and it's all I've really written up until that point. I'm now working on a novel, but I still read short stories more than anything else. So I really believed in the book, and I knew that I wanted to publish it. So then I went looking for presses that had open calls for submissions and that I knew in some way. I had actually discovered Saraban books because Mary Ruffel, a poet that I obviously talk about all the time, she had a book, a small like chat book come out with them, and I love that book. It's called On Imagination, and it's kind of like the way that it's a really short, really fun read about how she writes a poem and how she understands the imagination. Anyway, that inspired me. I was like, oh, they know what they're doing. So I submitted my manuscript to them through their contest, and it didn't win, but it was a finalist. And then they said, hey, you should submit this again next year. Every year is different. Like, send it to us again next year. And I had done in the year's time between submitting it the second time, I did some revisions and I changed the title, took some stories out and added some new ones in. And then I submitted it a second time. And that time it was second in the competition, did not get chosen, but I got a phone call saying that they still wanted to publish it anyway. So it was like really cool. Like, so I wasn't the winner. It was the Mary McCarthy short story or short fiction award. And so while I wasn't the winner of that, the book, they liked it enough to want to publish it. So I'm super grateful, and they've been excellent. They made a beautiful cover and a really great book. So I can't speak more highly of them. So yeah.
Cool. Congratulations.
Thanks.
We'll be putting that in my library, Tyler.
Great.
Okay, so far we have Vanessa and Elizabeth. Chris, Tyler just outed you as a poet, so I'm hoping you can read us something.
Yes, please.
I'll see what I can find.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and go with the open mic. We don't have a whole lot of people, so I'm going to say that you can read 2 poems. Read 2 poems, and we were going to begin with Vanessa.
Okay. I just have one.
Okay.
So Anne read, I don't know, last month or the month before, it inspired me to try a villanelle.
Oh,
So I'm dedicating this for Melissa. She was my hiking partner on the Appalachian Trail, and I have stolen her trail name as my title. This is the Pedestrian. She walks the hills religiously, not as one performing rites or trying hard to pray, but as one seeking fellowship with flesh and bone, with body and breath, with blood and stone. Fervently, devoutly, this is the way she walks the hills. Religiously, she places one foot in front of the other, feeling satisfaction in the clench and release of muscled thighs, the sway of arms, the deep fellowship of flesh and bone. Amid the laurel, beech, and oak, she walks alone and finds it doesn't have to be so hard to pray. She walks the hills religiously, not as one who hopes to achieve sanctification, but as one seeking only shelter at the close of day and sleep, this fellowship with flesh and bone, the rhythm of feet, the strong pulse of her own beating heart, and the slow pace of a day. And so she walks the hills religiously as one who resides in fellowship with flesh and bone.
beautiful. Nice.
Wonderful, wonderful. Wow.
Beautiful.
I want to write one of those so bad. That was great.
It was a challenge.
Yeah.
The villanelle form forces you into places you weren't necessarily planning to go.
You did so wonderful with it. One foot in front of the other. You did a great job.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
Nice. Beautiful.
That's a wonderful way to start. Elizabeth,
Thank
what you
you.
got?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Make sure you come back.
I will.
Good.
Thank you, Vanessa. That was great.
That's beautiful.
So I have a poem. Vanessa mentioned trees. You know, on the Appalachian Trail, there's lots of trees. I can only imagine what that looks like. My brother walked the Appalachian Trail, and I think he covered about a quarter of it before he came off the trail. But I've never tried, so I really respect anybody who walked the Appalachian Trail.
We did half.
Good.
Half's a lot.
So this is an elegy for tree. Elegy for tree. Dried seed pods rattle in late October wind. Mimosas dying. Squirrel finds no shelter from pelting rain. Scarred bark. Mimosas dying. Where are the sparrows to hunt and peck for insects? Mimosas dying. Tree perfumed the air, feathered blossoms last July. Mimosas dying. Limbs, leaves, bark, and roots, letting go of earth and time. Mimosas dying.
Beautiful. Nice.
Thank you.
It's beautiful.
Wow. What inspired that, Elizabeth?
Well, I live in a house in Reading that's 45. I've lived here 45 years old. I think the house was built in the 30s.
Okay.
When we moved in, there was a small mimosa tree in the front yard. And so that mimosa has been in my front yard for 45 years. And now it is dying. And it's very sad.
Wow.
And I had work done, you know, every couple of years or whatever, they keep it trimmed. And now, even after the men were gone and trimmed the dead wood, there's more dead wood.
Mm,
clear that the tree is not long for this world. And I just got really sad because
mm,
I hear you.
There's
that
such
tree has
beautiful
been so
trees.
beautiful when it blew.
mhm.
I don't know if
Yeah.
you've seen a mimosa. I know they're invasive, and I
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they're great.
they're so gorgeous, and the smell is so
Mhm,
July. And all these years, I'm wrapped
mhm.
by that experience of seeing it lose its leaves and then, come back in the spring, and the rhythm of that, and that all fed into my grief about losing that tree.
Okay.
So I wrote a poem,
Beautiful.
and
Yes.
it's a series of five haiku stanzas.
Mm,
That's just the way it seemed to fit, just talking about each thing. And then I don't know why I thought about the ring. It's like something religious,
mhm,
I use a chalice,
mhm,
which is a gift for my husband.
mm.
It's a pewter chalice, and it says, "Es ist nicht wunderbar, dass wir doch zusammengekommen sind." And that translates to, isn't it wonderful that we have come together?
Oh,
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 So that's
beautiful.
chalice, and I use this letter opener, and
Mhm.
that's
all right. So that's another poem, Elizabeth.
Yes.
Chalice and a letter opener.
Chalice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure Tyler's taking notes.
Right. That's great.
I am. Okay, thank you.
Beautiful.
Jane, I see your hand up.
Okay, yes, I raised, I couldn't find chat. It's always hard. So we seem to be using formal poetry tonight. So the last poem I wrote, I finally made it come together by turning it into a sonnet. So
Ooh.
yeah, surprised me, but there's an end, right? 14 lines. So
Okay.
so I'm working on some poems that I did a poetry reading a long time ago where the poet next to me, we were reading in a bar, which is the best thing to do. It was an anthology of women's erotic poetry. So that was fun anyway. And then we were in a bar, so everybody was having a great time. And the poet next to me requested I read a certain poem because she said, we need more poems about women's long-term relationships, not like new love or stuff, but the long haul. And so that's not the poem I'm going to read, but some poems have come out of this finally about like 3 years later. And so this is a poem about, we were able in 2014 to get married on our 25th anniversary.
wow.
And so, we'd already been on a long haul. But this is called Just a Couple of Old Women Getting Their Wedding Photos Done in Central Park, 2014. The locals flick their eyes across us, then away. Two women's no big deal here. Even posing, pinkies linked or hands crisscrossed, exposing new gold bands for old long love exchanged today. Not famous, young, or fabulous enough for second looks, we're legal. And so pleased, we strike each pose, however weird or cheesy our friend asks for, hoping puddings in the proofs. And there, in one, she's made our bodies form a heart that starts at our pressed foreheads and then arcs around our gray, say silver, hair, shorn short, and meets at the top buttons of our shirts. Somehow she's caught or photoshopped gold light that sets our glasses glinting and our laughs alight.
Hmm.
Thank
Wow.
you. Thanks.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
That's an awesome story too.
Yeah, and it's true. Virtually. Yeah, it is. It
Yeah,
is.
you had some nice wordplay going on there as well.
Thank you. Thank you. I had fun with that. Yeah. puttings in the proofs. It's like,
I like it.
really?
Yes,
Can
yes.
you do it? I thought, hell yeah. Why not? Yeah. Thank
Okay.
you.
And Jane, I wanted to say that I have in my study here a framed copy of your poem, Finding Her Here. And you signed it, and you read it at RAC a long
time ago. Yeah, yeah. Now that's one that had a life of its own for a lot. Well, it still does. I still find it in weird places. It's the poem you write, that's the poem you need. So when I was hitting 40, so I'm almost 70 now. So when I was hitting I think it was 40 or 50. Anyway, one of those decades, you know, it was like, so I am becoming the woman I've wanted. And I wasn't quite there, but I wrote it as if I was, you know, and then it turned out to, it's been on everything from, it was in a minister's sermon, she used it, and then it was on an S&M website, and a queen in an African country, her daughters read it at her funeral.
Oh, wow, that's awesome.
So I mean, just amazing shit. And then it became a poster, and I actually got royalties for a couple of years. I'd get royalty checks, and that press has gone out of print. You know, it doesn't exist anymore because it paid royalties to the authors, to the poets, but it was a lovely thing. So they're the same people that did When I'm an Old Woman, I Shall Wear Purple and stuff. And they treated their authors very well. So unfortunately, they didn't survive. But anyway, that's I'm always happy to know it's around. I remember my daughter went into a bookshop in Massachusetts and took a picture of herself holding the book because she saw it and stuff. So yeah, that's a nice poem. Thank you for saying that.
I'll put the title of the book in the chat for us, Jane.
The book is they use the first line of the poem. It's the title poem. So I am becoming the woman I've wanted. And then it's an anthology of women's poetry. So a lot of you know Barbara Crooker. She has poems in that. And then this poem was in it. And then it just, from there, they made it into poster and t-shirts for a little while. And mugs and all kinds of crazy shit. And so it had a beautiful life,
Okay,
or is having one.
Bring that poem to the open mic on next month.
Okay, all right, I will.
Okay, cool.
I will. Thank you.
Chris, are you ready?
Okay, I don't have a poem, but I have an excerpt from a prose piece that I'm working on. Will that be okay?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. The sea holds secrets. There were those whose flesh, whose bones gave way to water and waves. They jumped ship, not all of them. Otherwise, you and I, would not be. But some of them found ways back to freedom. Sister to our mother's mother's mother, father to our father's father's father, ones whose names drowned along with them. They would rather sink like stones to a water grave than live and breathe bound and unfree. At night, they say you can hear their moans and screams. Don't you know these waters are haunted? Don't you know these lands are cursed? All that brutality, trails of tears, cotton, tobacco, sugarcane fields of blood, brown bodies broken and swinging. At night, the land weeps, the seas moans. It's the ones whose bones lie buried at the bottom, the way the sea holds them like a mother who has lost her many children, welcoming them home. It's all the many ways we could not own ourselves, see? The way we could not choose who to spread our legs to, who to keep them closed from. One night, We dreamed a time when the women would wear blouses that bared their breasts, trousers that displayed their great asses like ripe offerings. A time when the women would walk this world as God. We met in the woods and the beach forest. We met under a cover of darkness. We met so we could brave a space and a time where we could own our own selves, if just for a moment. Some of us could see with the long sight. Lucille, Tawny, Josephiah, me, we had the second sight, could see beyond the veil, could see beyond what is into what is becoming, a time when the women would walk the earth like gods again, the way they once walked before the ships came, before the men with their guns and whips, their chains and tomb ships that carried us away from ourselves, from owning our own selves, sovereign kings, sovereign queens. They forced our mouths open when we tried to free ourselves with starvation, shoved tubes down our throats and filled our bellies with watery gruel. They forced our legs open with rough hands and hard cocks, flooded our wombs with seed and filled our bellies with babies we did not want. We endured. We stayed alive. We stayed alive because we saw you there, yet to come and coming. We saw you there, walking like gods in this world once again. I wanted to tell you that you do not walk for you alone. You do not wear this freedom without consequence and cost, without responsibility. You own yourselves for us too, because of us too. What is time anyway? Does it even exist? Your God-like hands reaching for us, stretching back through time, through the ethers and memory into this place where we are even now sitting in this night, in this beach forest, in this terror, waiting. You owe us everything.
Oh, wow. Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
You got to come back next month, Chris.
Yes, please.
I will. I will.
You want to know what inspired that?
Yeah. Oh, that's gorgeous. And it is a poem. It's so
Yeah.
beautiful. The
Yeah.
repetition
I'm like
and the
Tyler.
cadence.
My prose is poetry.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm like Tyler in that for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I learned from Christine. I read her book at a young age, and as a younger writer, and it was very informative. So
Okay, what's the title of Christine?
Yes.
Y'all, I'm gonna get a library going on here tonight. What's the
I'll put
title
it
of
in-
Christine's book?
I'll put it in the comments.
All right.
Okay. Thank you. That was gorgeous. Oh my
Thank
gosh.
you. Thank you.
I've been writing for 50 years, and I tell you, I'm still learning. Like Tyler says, you know, and I love music, so I'm always hearing about a new artist somewhere, and I got to go hear him and check him. Well, I don't. Oh my God! So and you learn from that, and we pass it on, kind of like Christine's poem.
Yeah.
We're like in this race that we are passing on the baton. All right. I brought it this far, now take it and shape it as you will and carry it forward to the next one. And I'm thinking about the women out there now in Washington, D.C., which is about 30 miles from me. Mad at Supreme Court, you know, one, and then she's talking about freedom and we belong to ourselves. And it's also relevant, you know, it's also relevant. So
yeah.
thank you for
Yeah.
opening the door for us.
Beautiful.
Okay, I thought I saw one more person in here. Sandra, is it? Sandra, are you a poet? Got something? No?
I wasn't really planning to read anything.
Okay. Well, I'm not trying to press you. I'm just saying you did. You know.
Yeah, you know, maybe next time I am.
Okay.
Especially, you know, I feel sometimes you listen and you absorb, and it's just lovely to just listen.
True. All right, I'm gonna do one poem real quick. I was gonna do one. And I do this in honor of all those we have lost this year, 800,000 people in the last 2 years. COVID has done a heck of a job on humanity, and still changing the world as we speak, as we recite poetry to one another. It's changing the world, you know. And if the sun must set, let me remember it was bright, and hold this recollection deep into the night. Aid me in recalling the way that it gave sight. Reveal to me the truth, the way of this great light. To pause in the reflection, how it rises from the right and grows in all it shows in reaching to his height. And freely shares the blessings of awareness, growth, and might. If the sun must set, let me remember it was bright. Assist me in remembrance. Sun came forth bringing morn, and beaming down from heaven, touched earth and made it warm. Radiating unto seeds new life therein was formed. In places where there was no life, the same source brought forth scorn. Sun causes rainbows to come out in mist or after storms. Inspired me, as you can see, that I should write this poem. As I look unto a book called Life, though the page is worn, knowledge firm concerning sunset, death, rise means reborn. If the sun must set, then please remind me it will rise. If not in this place I see, then on the other side. This story told another way, behold the ocean's tide. And energy stored up in me, teach me to pace my stride. The light placed in the soul of me was not put there to hide. Teach me not to fear, but give instruction using pride. I know by saying I don't know, there's room I might be wise. If the sun must set, then please remind me, it will rise.
Beautiful, nice.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
So that's all of the poetry from the people who have attended this great reading tonight. And we've saved space for our feature poet to remind us that he was the feature and we came to listen to him. So we're going to leave with a poem that he selected for us that we can carry away in our hearts.
Beautiful.
Tyler, that's you, man.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Thanks, Bernard. You've been a great host. Thanks for bringing everybody together and keeping things moving. Thanks to everyone for sharing too. This was great to hear everyone's work. And I'm so happy, Chris, that you were here and that you shared something too.
That's gorgeous.
This is special. So I'm going to read a poem and it is very short, but I'll read it slow. Okay. It's called We Were Dying. We were dying. The only proof was sound, roar of sirens, a brown bear's howl, the sputter of a cocked gun. Our captain's last report over the intercom. His tone could not affect calm, not even close. Somewhere up above us, lightning is striking, he said. Oppose. Thank you.
Wonderful. Nice. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yay.
Fabulous.
Great evening, everybody. Thank you
This
so
was
much.
fantastic.
So,
Fantastic.
thank you.
That was great. Chris, I'm so glad you came.
I am too. Oh, I'm so happy. Tyler, you
It's
made my
great.
day.
That was
Yeah,
great,
you made
Tyler.
mine. I didn't even know that was you. It just said Chris. I didn't. That was someone named Chris. I don't know.
Well, it's nice to see everyone. I'm off to yet another poetry thing.
Ah,
Oh,
nice,
that's
nice.
wonderful.
Good.
Yes, I have a critique group that I'm part of, so off to
Good for
that.
you.
Yeah,
Great.
but thank you so much.
Thanks you all for
Thank you.
coming.